The Wolfram family owned a small farm on outskirts of Moosehorn, Manitoba, Canada. On May 15, 1934, 4 years old Betty Wolfram was placed in a carriage by her father, and he put the carriage in front of the farmhouse before going to the farm to do some work. When the father returned back to check on her daughter, she was gone. This farm was in a remote area of Manitoba which was populated by only few small family farms which were scattered. There are very few visitors and it's rare to see a neighbor traveling the roadway. This area has lots of swamps and vegetations. The day Betty disappeared, the family didn't see anybody driving the road to their farm. They also never saw any dust clouds on the road, which appears when someone is traveling the road. After Betty's father realized she was missing, he searched the entire farm, and after having no success, he contacted neighbors for assistance. After they searched the surrounding area, one of the neighbors left to ask help from authorities. In the first 5 days, they didn't find anything. There were over 100 police officers, farmers and volunteers looking for Betty. On the 5th day, a heavy rain hit the area which convinced the searchers Betty wouldn't survive. The nights were cold and searchers believed they covered every possible land in the area that Betty could be. 6 days after Betty's disappearance, a farmer with the name of Roy Rosin started searching the area in hope of finding the girl. About 2 miles from where Betty went missing, Roy found the 4-year-old walking in a swampy area. She was semi-conscious and was calling for her dad. Roy picked the girl up and took her to her dad. A doctor examined the girl and stated there was very little loss of flesh and no evidence of dehydration. Another fact was there are so many mosquitoes in this swampy area, but there were no bites or scratches. The doctor clearly stated he believed the child has had food, water and some shelter for the past 3 to 4 days. He didn't believe the girl could endure 6 days in the wild and show no sign of dehydration or starvation without having assistance of some sort. Another strange fact of this case was that Betty was found dry, although it had rained heavily just the day before she was found, and her shoes and clothing were fairly clean considering how long she spent in the wild. The family also said that since Betty arrived, she's been whimpering softly and had hardly spoken. They also said she was sleeping a lot. Another interesting fact of this case is that one of the neighbor's farmers said that the last 3 days prior to Betty's disappearance, one of his cows kept returning from the bushes and milked on each of those days. He said this never happened before, but it was obvious someone was milking the cow. Roy, who had found Betty, said in one of his interviews that when he went to look for Betty, he did not expect to come back alive, or if he came back, he would be all broken up. It seemed as if he knew more than he was letting on. The area Betty was found was searched multiple times before, but Betty wasn't there at those times. When she was found, she was missing her coat, hat and one shoe, which none of them were ever found. 3 days after Betty was found, she started talking with his mother in German, and she said during the time she was gone, she had met a mother and a daughter, and also she had seen a cat that had scratched her. She said on the day she was found, a man pointed her to walk in a direction that would lead to her farm, which she was doing when she was found. After hearing the girl's statement, they did another search of the area to find evidence of shelter or any food consumption, but none was found. How Betty got lost and what really happened during her disappearance remains a mystery to this day. The McLean family went to picnic on the campground of Deer Lodge National Forest of Montana, United States on July 4, 1953. They had 2 boys and 3 girls who were with them in this trip. On the fourth day of the camping, around 2:30 p.m., the family was playing ball when they realized that 3-year-old little Paddy Ann had wandered off. The family started searching for the little girl, and after not having any success, they called the US Forest Service and they notified the sheriff department. Within hours, there were hundreds of searchers on the scene looking for Ann. On the first night, they searched the swamps and wooded area, but they found nothing. They brought in bloodhound dogs to the scene as well, but they had no success. At noon the next day, some searchers wandered off deep into the forest to a rocky cliff. 3 searchers started climbing up a rock ledge when they suddenly saw Petty Ann on a rock halfway up a cliff. She was missing one shoe but was in a good condition considering it had got down to 40 degrees the night before. She was found 8 miles from where she disappeared. A missing 3-year-old usually is found 5.6 miles from the point they were last seen. The little girl got interviewed after she went to hospital and she said she slept under a log, indicating she wasn't on the cliff at night. She also said she had seen little cows, but there are no cows in the area. How she managed to travel 8 miles in only 24 hours and climb a rock cliff remains a mystery to this day. Two-year-old Megan Ginevich lived with her mother Donna in a remote residence in a valley on the outskirts of St. Ignatius, Montana. Donna was a nanny for the residents of the house they were living at. It was a beautiful location and there was only one road to the residence. On April 30th, 1980, Donna put Megan in the yard which had no fence before going back to do some housework. After some time, she went back to the yard to check on her, but she was nowhere to be found. She knew nobody had driven up their road because she would have seen and heard them. She searched the area but couldn't find her 2-year-old. She called law enforcement and they were at the scene in no time. This area has lots of large trees and lots of open land and lakes. Lake County Sheriff Glenn Frame was looking over the operation. They searched the area by foot, on horse and by air, all without finding one trace of Megan. Neighbors were interviewed as well and they also stated they hadn't seen any vehicle driving the road prior to Megan's disappearance. Searchers looked for Megan in the lakes and the creek but nobody was found. Megan's father drove to the area and clearly stated he believed his daughter was abducted. It's worth mentioning, although she went missing at the end of April, the area was hit by a heavy snowstorm only hours after her disappearance. The storm lasted for 10 days and really hindered searchers' ability to track and look for evidence. Megan Ginevich was never found.